don't allow any kind of part of the business to speculate. Banks blow up, right? They invest, they call it invest customer money into financial instruments. I just don't do it. I want guaranteed revenue. Very early on, I realized that all these managers are not like me. One-on-one, how are you? Making sure people feel great. For me, I never bought it. Like, great people don't need how are you. As soon as you start spending time managing people, they're probably a failure. People need to be independent. They need to self-deliver it without my help.
You feel a lot more efficient and disciplined than most US companies.
Yeah, US is a large market. If you show traction, product market fit, okay, they throw at you infinite amount of money, and then you can afford not to be efficient. My kind of attitude was always, every day I want to be at 100%, so I don't have regret in the future.
I'm super excited to have this conversation with Nick, the founder of Revolut. Revolut is one of the largest neobanks in the world with over 40 million customers worldwide. And Nick is the founder, having started the business in 2015. So super excited to have Nick here and talk about his personal story and the story of Revolut. Nick, first, thanks so much for coming and doing this. I know you don't do a lot of these, so I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting.
Yeah. So I think we've met in 2018 or 2019, I think in London. I'm trying to remember. And I remember the first impression I had of you was like, wow, this guy's a hardcore guy, you know? He's like super intense and focused and, you know, and I remember coming to Revolut's office and it was like 8 p.m. or something. And it was like, everyone was there. It was like super late. And like, you know, I was like, oh, it reminds me of some of these Chinese companies, like people work so hard. And I was really impressed. I came back to Brex and was like, we need to work more like those guys, you know, like they're crushing it there. So I'm curious, right? Like, were you like that since you were a kid? You know, were you always like super hardworking, super intense in the beginning, or is it something that grew later?
Yeah, I think when I was 7 years old and I was at school was pretty tough. And I was also taking part in a lot of competitions, like in math, physics, also swimming. And because no one was really preparing me for these competitions, for math, physics, and then initially I was losing them. And because I was so competitive from the childhood, I really kind of learned myself to work hard to compensate for someone else preparing me. Because I was competing with other kids who had parents preparing them for Olympiads. And when I was losing, like in the first 3-4 years, I was really kind of tough for me. So I kind of get used to, working hard and then putting myself 100% in something I want to win.
And was math and physics like you're like a
math, physics, economics as well.
Economics, even from a young age?
Well, not from a young age. I think, I started competing in Olympiads in economics when I was probably like 13, 14 years old.
Is it like science Olympiads? Is that the kind of
science, yeah. So it's very mathematical, yes.
But is it the kind that goes to like the International Physics Olympics, like IFO?
Yeah,
or those kind of competitions?
It does, yeah.
Did you ever go to, do you do well, or do you kind of...
No, I actually won twice international. I won when I was 9th grade and then 11th grade as well.
Oh, wow. The international one?
International, yeah.
For physics?
No, it was economics.
Economics?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know they have it for economics.
Yeah.
What do they test you on?
So there are two parts. One is effectively problem solving in economics, like in a mathematical Olympiad, but in economics. And second one is practice. So it's effectively you kind of play a game, setting up business and then putting money in R&D, in marketing, setting up the price. And then there are many other teams who have companies, and then you just compete in a modeled environment. So it's all kind of computer program, right? It is based on rounds. For each round, you set up price, R&D spending, marketing spending, like hiring employees, firing employees, how many units you produce.
And who wins?
So you've got many teams across many countries. So usually 100+ teams. And then we have, same as in football, like in rounds, right?
Yeah.
And then in the final round, you compete against other, I think 7 or 8 companies. And I won twice when I was 14 and 16.
But how do they decide who wins?
It's computer program. So winning is basically how much profit you make overall. So it's a combination of profit, market share, quality of the product.
But how do they
So
run the simulations to make
on computer? It's a computer program.
Oh,
right?
there's a computer program
Yeah,
that is
so you use a team, you just input certain parameters, right? And computer calculates everything for all the teams.
Interesting.
And then they give you a report on your company in terms of what is the P&L, how much you sold, and so on. And then you put input, for the second round, third round, and so on.
And how did you find out? I never heard about this. Like, how did you find out about it?
I think my teacher just introduced us to it. Yeah.
Interesting. So did you have econ class in Russia? Like when you were growing up?
Yeah.
That was part of the core curriculum?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Huh. So you and then you're like, okay, now you have these econ classes, like go do this Olympiads and
exactly. Yeah. And then when I went to uni, I went to study physics. It's top university in physics in Russia. MIPT is equivalent of MIT, but in Russia. I went specifically in the group where they had economics classes as well.
And why did you go study physics, not economics?
Or just because it was the best university, and I always thinking it doesn't matter where you study, it matters how they develop your brains. And then in my mind, economics was much easier compared to physics. And I was actually living alone since I was 13, 14 years old, and then I stayed with my brother.
Oh, interesting.
At the flat, and then I continued school.
So you're living by yourself since you're 14.
It was very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's like a different thing. It's funny. I actually had a similar experience. I went to do exchange programs, which kind of living in a family, but then I kind of was living by myself since 15, 16. And I definitely think that living by yourself, makes you an adult faster.
100%, right? Yeah.
Did you have any funny stories about, that time that you were living by yourself?
That was so long time ago, but preparing food for myself, cleaning for myself, I think it's valuable.
You had to do everything. You were cooking for yourself, cleaning up after yourself, and you're living in the home that they left. They left, and you stayed in. Okay, and then how does the uni process work? You just do a test and you kind of get in?
So basically, in uni back then, it was more than 20 years ago. So they had exams. So they had exam in maths and then in physics. And I just passed two of them with the highest scores, and then got accepted to the hardest faculty.
How did you think, growing up in Russia now, pre-Soviet, what did you think about the U.S., the Western world? What was the kind of narrative that you grew up with about what was the U.S., for example?
To be honest with you, back then there was no real narrative. I remember when I was studying in the university, a lot of people. So basically, I was studying physics, and then simultaneously I got accepted in the best economics school in Russia as well. So I was finishing actually two universities simultaneously.
Oh, so you went to during your physics one, you applied to the other one too?
Yes. So basically, physics I was doing for 6 years university. So it's standard bachelor, you do 4 years, and then 2 years you do master. So when I done bachelor, I also applied for master degree in economics and finance in top university in Russia. So I was finishing 2 masters in parallel for physics. And then
wow. And they were both in Moscow?
Both in Moscow, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, back then a lot of people, they wanted to go to do PhD in American universities, even myself.
Yeah.
Thanks God I haven't done it. Yeah,
yeah, you don't seem like the PhD kind of guy.
And then back then, what actually changed my opinion on PhD, because all their trading houses and investment banks, they came to recruit all the kind of brightest graduates from physics and economics in Russia. So I just decided to kind of change career path from PhD to go
into work.
Yeah.
But the USSR had a very different economic model for a long time, right? Did you study the economic model, or it was how do you even think about, was it fully capitalism economics, or were there other ways when you're studying it?
No, in Russia actually, so USSR collapsed when I was 8 years old, right? So actually I observed all the kind of capitalism, right? And it was pure capitalism.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing, and then suddenly all people started, building businesses, trading.
So you were seeing that from very close. How did it feel like? What did it look like?
Now I think I was too young, right, to get something done. So I kind of, observed everything as a kid.
Yeah.
But I haven't done anything myself because I was, too young.
But you were observing it, right?
I was observing it.
Yeah. What did you think? You were thinking hey, I need to start a business because everyone's starting businesses here is making money. Is that kind of the conclusion you got?
I just observed that a lot of people become rich. You see different cars. You see people buying cars before they didn't have cars. And for me it was motivation to kind of earn money. Yeah.
What was cars? Like you were really into cars growing up? You're
Yeah,
like,
as a kid, as a young kid, yeah.
yeah. You're like, oh, you know, I want to get me money. I'm gonna buy this awesome car.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like for me, when I was growing up, I was just a tall kid. I'm like my height since I'm 14.
Yeah.
And sometimes I traveled and I just want, one day I'm going to make money. I'm going to go on business class, you know, because like this fucking economy seat, I don't fit in it, you know, it's terrible. I remember that being a big motivation.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. So you said the recruiters came to
basically after first year of MA, so recruiters came for the internship. And then internship was in London. So I passed all the stages, flew to London, and I liked it there, right? They liked me, so they gave me a full-time offer. I think they had like definitely 10,000 plus applicants. Lehman Brothers.
Lehman Brothers.
Yeah. My last year into university, I was actually working full-time for Lehman Brothers and then in parallel finishing studies.
Oh, wow. So you were doing like 2 masters and working for Lehman, which is not a chill job, right?
Not a chill job. To be honest, university last year was pretty chill, so it wasn't that hard. Yeah.
And did you want to leave Russia?
It was a good opportunity to effectively learn how things work abroad, it's just cool.
And you thought at that time that you're going to go back or no?
I thought actually that I would work for someone for 2 years and I start my own business.
In Russia or outside?
Doesn't matter. I just wanted to start something on my own, but then in reality, when Lehman Brothers collapsed, then I went to Credit Suisse, and back then I was on a work permit visa. So you can't really resign from the bank and start your own business because then you will lose access to the country, right? So I had to wait, I think 5 years until I get passport, and then the day I got passport, I just resigned.
Oh, wow. So you're at Lehman, and what was your first job? What was the kind of...
Trading?
Yeah. And what was the... Like, it's probably like it's a very intense... I imagine it's a very intense culture. Like, what was the culture like when you joined?
It was actually quite fun, right? And, I was always, enjoying trading myself because, back then I thought it was like quite an intellectual challenge to...
What were you trading?
Options.
Yeah.
But in reality, option traders are not really speculating in the bank. They are speculating back then, but majority is just market making, right? So you make prices on different derivatives. When customers come, they buy or sell to you.
So explain to the audience how it works, right? Like, what was options trading job in practice doing there?
Well, you just come in the morning, right? Usually come 6:30 a.m. Before the market opens. You have a book, right, where you have all your positions. Market opens, then you have incoming requests. Okay, some customer might buy puts or calls. Or
so I want to buy like I don't know, a 6-month call from Barclays at like $30 a share or something like that. Someone shows up.
Kind of, yeah. And but sizes are usually large because they're all institutional orders, so they usually quotes in tons
$5
of
million
millions.
or
5 or 10, or sometimes $100 million as the index. Then you make a price, and then they trade with you. You effectively put it in your book. Then you hedge position. Then you go through a broker to hedge to resell this option. To some other bank or some other client. So just market making.
And you were the one doing that. You're like talking to customers on both ends, or you're getting some sales guys?
Sales guys were bringing deals. Yeah.
Sales guys were bringing deals. You're doing the job of like finding out what's the right price.
Yeah, you just, as a trader, you're just ensuring that you make the largest P&L on your book. As simple as that. So you need to hedge the book. Sometimes you also take prop positions because you think, market goes up, market goes down.
And was there anything you learned in uni that was, helpful for this, or no? You had to relearn everything?
No, you had to relearn everything, yeah.
Just the core math that you learned in university?
The reality, back in uni, I was studying Black-Scholes models, how to price options as a course. But reality, when you work as a trader, as a market maker, you already have tools which price options for you. And you just become, so much more practical in terms of how you value options.
Okay, so then you're at Lehman, and you were a trader, and then it collapsed, right? Like you were there when it collapsed. How was that?
I think I was like 22 back then. And,
22? That's crazy.
It was fun experience.
So tell me, like, what was the play-by-play when it collapsed? You were there.
So on Sunday, they announced that Merrill Lynch was bought out by government or bailed out, and then Lehman Brothers was effectively let go. So on Monday, I came to work. All the systems were closed. You can't trade. but there were like other 200-400 traders on the trading floor, no access to the systems. You just sit there, and they were all playing the same computer game.
Which one?
Some shooting helicopters. Yeah,
Okay.
web-based. The only game which was not blocked by corporate system.
Wow. But like, were the days before, did you already think it was going to happen? Like, was there
No one ever thought it would happen, to be honest. It was like completely unexpected.
Wow. So like on the Friday, you're like, I'm just going to come to Monday. And then Monday they showed, it's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's done. But to be honest, I was very young and very confident in my abilities to find any other jobs.
So you weren't scared?
No, not at all. For me, it's like, interesting what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Good learning.
Completely, yeah, exactly.
Is there any learning that you took at that time about like, what to do, what not to do, life, anything that we were thinking at that moment in time?
I mean, to be honest, I was so confident in myself that, I in my mind, I can do anything. I would never be without money or something. Yeah.
Where do you think all that confidence kind of came from? Like, did you just win a lot when you were?
Yeah, exactly. I think, when I was a kid, because of all these competitions, because you build certain track record, also because universities were very hard with exams. You kind of learned how to.
And you were always like number one or something. Then you were like.
First 2 years in university, I was always top grades and so on. But then I started working as well, and then I realized going deep into science is not for me.
Yeah.
So I started doing some side projects, started working as well.
Like what side projects?
Just to make money, different things. Because back then, a lot of students were trying, for example, buying cell phones, selling cell phones, this kind of things.
Interesting. So you got into the buying cell phone business?
Yeah.
Interesting. How did it work? Like, was that kind of your first, business?
I mean, initially I thought I lost money, right? But then, I actually made it all back, and I think I made 5 to 10x on what I put in.
But what was the business like? What was this buy and sell phone business?
So basically, there were guys who were who had their, I think, one shop, and it was really, going well. They were selling cell phones. They wanted to expand.
Like a retail shop, a normal retail shop.
Yeah. So I gave them money, and they went into the business, but then business didn't do well initially, so that lost it all.
But how do you get the money to give them at that? You're so young, right?
Desire to make money, right? Yeah. Just desire to take risk.
But how did you have the money to give to them?
Oh, because I was also working part-time as well.
Oh, you were working part-time?
Part-time, yeah. So I had...
For what?
So basically I was working part-time at Institute of Economic Research.
What?
It's Economic Research Institute. I forgot its name.
But it's kind of like a research job?
Yeah, it's like a research job. So basically what you do, they give you a problem. Then you read many articles of foreign literature scientists on this problem. Right, then what you do, you just design a certain way to solve the problem that you discovered in these articles, right? Then you effectively program it in Stata, you calculate, certain things, then you write it down, and then I think they resell research to the government afterwards.
So this is the first job, in fact.
Yeah, that was my first part job, yeah.
Okay, so you were making some money from this, exactly. And then you're using it to... I still don't understand the cell phone business. You would give them money to expand their retail shop?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So it's kind of an investment?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So they were doing super well, just retailing cell phones, and you gave some money.
I mean, it didn't work well initially, but they actually, then it worked well, and then in a year they returned this money.
So how old were you when you made this first cell phone money, I guess?
19 probably.
Okay, so you had some comments I made money when I'm 19. I can probably keep making money.
Yeah,
right?
Of course. Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of people that that's not they're 22 and they're not confident, And I think that's it does seem like a pattern I see in a lot of people who are successful that they're just hyper confident when they're young. Exactly. I had the same thing. I was 100% sure everything was going to work.
For me, the same. I was 100% sure that I can make money.
Yeah. And I try to describe that to people today. And sometimes I come out as not relatable because people are like, what do you mean you were 100% sure? I just don't know. I just 100% sure, And I think part of it is then you're pitching, you're doing, you're recruiting, everything, that confidence kind of transpires over time.
Exactly. You just build a track record and because you're also young, you have a track record. I mean, you're extremely confident.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So Lehman Brothers, you're trading there, it collapsed. And then what do you do?
So my boss, he actually went to Credit Suisse and then he hired myself with him as well. So he was hiring Credit Suisse and then he hired me.
Same thing, trading.
Same thing, yeah.
Trading. Well, funny that Credit Suisse also. Years later.
I was actually first had a job in Nomura for 1 month.
Nomura.
Nomura, yeah. But then he kind of hired me from Nomura to Credit Suisse.
Okay. And trading was the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, but like, and then why did you think you're going to have like a long career in Wall Street? Because you could make a lot of money at a time in Wall Street, right? Like if you just like kept doing what you're doing and like big bonuses and.
Kind of, yeah. But to be honest, I was never satisfied because like in trading job, yes, you have P&L, but then banks became very political. So there's a lot of people who kind of, lose money, but then still being paid, big bonuses as well.
Yeah. Did you get paid big bonus?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your like first bonus? Do you remember?
First bonus, I don't remember. Yeah, but it was like
or
maybe $500,000 or something.
What?
Yeah.
But that was your first bonus?
Maybe a bit less, but it was like definitely close to $500,000.
That like kind of like order of magnitude.
Yeah, when I was like started properly trading.
Yeah. Makes sense. And what were your like kind of hobbies at the time? Like what were you doing as kind of like outside of work around this time?
So I loved windsurfing. So I started, windsurfing.
Oh, where did you windsurf?
I think initially I started probably in Egypt.
Egypt?
In Dahab, yeah. That's where I learned windsurfing. And then I actually switched to kitesurfing after I went to Dahab, or probably I went to Croatia, and then there wasn't enough wind for windsurfing, but kiters still were kiting, so I decided to switch to kiting.
Do you need more wind for windsurfing than for kiting?
In reality, for windsurfing, yes. To really glide, you need more wind compared to kite. Yeah.
And then you moved to kite setting what year? Like you said it was like 2011 or something, right? That you moved to kiting? 2012?
Yeah, probably 2011, 2012, yeah.
Yeah, you were a very early kiter.
The
kites were like kind of dangerous back then, right?
No, not really. To be honest, I looked at equipment now and back then. It didn't change much.
Is it 4 lines already when you started?
5 lines.
5. Okay, because the early kiting, I think it was 2 lines that people had.
Oh no, it's too early now.
I was
already
really
4 liners or 5 liners, yeah.
Makes sense. Because that was really dangerous. That was like, there was no way to stop. You could just like get pulled away. And then, okay, so you're windsurfing, kitesurfing. So you went to Credit Suisse and then you were trading, same thing there, just options.
Options, yeah. Same markets.
Making like, hundreds of thousands of dollars in bonus and beyond. And then what happened after that? What did you do after? You got your visa, you said, right? Like,
yeah, I was already kind of set to leave. I was just waiting for last year for the passport. That's it.
And, so you already knew you wanted to leave. You just didn't want to leave because of the passport.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you already knew you wanted to start a business, or?
Yeah, exactly. I want to start a business, and then just waiting for my passport to arrive.
And is there anyone you were like looking for like inspiration, or like which entrepreneurs did you follow or track around that time? Like how do you even know like what to start, like what's a good business, all that?
Good question. I don't remember following anyone, to be honest. Yeah. Because back then it was all like, about banking, consulting, all top graduates went into banking, consulting. And then back then, no one actually talked about tech and startups. Now everyone talks about tech and startups. It's hot, right? But back then,
Which year is this, you think? 2014?
It was 2014, yes. 2013, 2014.
I remember around this time, I had just started my first business, and I remember TechCrunch was like a huge thing for me. I was reading TechCrunch a lot, and that was like a big inspiration.
Oh, interesting. No, I didn't know anything about TechCrunch.
You didn't know any like media websites online about tech and stuff like that?
No. I didn't really, read it all. And for me, it was because I was in an environment in London. And London was really financial capital of Europe, maybe the world back then. Yeah. And I was surrounded by bankers or traders or salespeople. My friends were bankers as well, or traders, and no one really talked about startups.
But like when you thought about starting a business, you're like, I'm going to start the next Lehman Brothers. Was that what's kind of going on to your mind?
No, to be honest, I was much more modest, right? I was just looking for some business idea just to start. And I was looking for several ideas and or several problems to solve. I was looking at what's happening in China, what's happening in the US, what worked in China, what worked in the US. Just looking for ideas. Yeah.
And was Tinkoff already like successful?
No, back then, Tinkoff probably haven't launched yet.
Oh, it didn't launch yet?
Or maybe they had.
But it wasn't
but back then, I didn't know about Tinkoff. Yeah.
You didn't know about it? Yeah. Which is interesting. Like until, kind of recently, it was probably one of the most successful kind of neobanks, let's put it like that, in the world, right?
Yeah, back then, yeah, probably.
Yeah. And so, but what about like venture? Like, did you know that VCs wouldn't invest in startups? Like, was that a thing? You're like kind of like aware and.
No, back then, no. I just I had this desire to build something myself, right? To be kind of independent of all these bosses who I thought they are not very clever. And yeah, just left, had this idea about a card with zero effects and transfers with
So
zero
before
effects.
we get into Revolut, like what were the other businesses you considered? Like what were you?
So I was looking at, what was it? Loans business, like, micro loans business.
Microloans?
Yeah. Then I was looking into
All in Europe, or were you looking?
like just UK. And then I was looking for marketplace. I think, buying and selling clothes. There was some kind of social network in China back then that really, took off. And I thought, maybe I just copy it in Europe.
How would you finding out what's happening in China? Like, how were you even knowing that?
I was just researching on the internet, trying to find some business ideas. Yeah.
Interesting. Was there anyone that you got really close to doing?
I think I selected 3 or 4 ideas, and then I just went with Revolut.
Do you remember what the other ones were?
So yeah, last ideas were loans, right? Micro loans, like, fast digital, because I think, back then there were no service who would give you, back loans, very fast. Then this Chinese website as well, Replic, and then it was Revolut. Yeah.
And the other one was Revolut.
Yeah.
And what was the Chinese one exactly? It was like just.
I don't remember the name, but it was effectively social network where people post about their clothes. And then you can also buy clothes on this website.
Kind of social commerce.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. And let's talk about that. Did you look a lot to China? Like, what did you think of China back then?
Yeah, I looked a lot at China.
Why? I guess like it's not an obvious thing for someone to do back then, I guess.
No, just because you look at growth, right? And you look at number of people, and then you look at innovation, what's happening. So I was looking at the US and China back then.
It does seem that like a lot of your economic stuff from back in the day did play a role in like how you think about the world, right?
Yeah, maybe, but for me it was just intuition, right?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, well, usually intuition, you have to build it from something. Yeah. You're very kind of like numbers focused, and you always talk about like the growth and the, and it's a really interesting like way to think when you're that young,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then Revolut. Well, okay. So tell me what the first idea for Revolut was.
So I simply wanted to have a card. So basically, what I've done, I set up myself multiple bank accounts with different currencies. And when I was traveling or sending money, I was trying to spend from these bank accounts and send money from these bank accounts, but it was like super clunky, like very difficult. And then back then, online banking was also pretty shit. So you cannot really, go on the website. You need to put, tons of passwords, some devices to enter. It was like really messy back then. So I decided to effectively build a company or a product, like a bank account plus a card attached to it. So you can go abroad and then spend in multiple currencies at interbank rate. So kind of in my head, I already knew how to do infrastructure around it in terms of hedging currency exchange, because obviously I was a trader. I know how things work. But then in terms of card payment infrastructure, I knew zero. So what I've done, I started researching how to get it done. I found, call it partners in the value chain, like issuing bank, processor, card factory, like a few others to put it all together, to integrate it all, and then launch a card. And then I was trying to find how to issue multi-currency card, how to stop infrastructure. And everyone told me from issuing banks that it's not possible, it doesn't exist. So what I've done, I hired the best consultant, prepaid card consultant in the UK to help me with the infrastructure.
How did you find that guy?
Someone recommended me to him, and I called him, and then he said, "No, like it's impossible to get done. I won't even charge you for it."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Okay, why don't you wait? Why don't I pay you for 2 days consulting? Just come to the office, you explain me how MasterCard works, Visa works, card processing works, and maybe we'll figure something out." So I sat down with the team, and then
why did you think it was impossible? Like why?
Just because no one ever done it before in the UK. And so we kind of sat down with the team and then we figured out how to get it done. We showed the scheme to him and he said, yeah, it might be possible. So that's.
What was the first version of it? Like, how did you get it done early on?
So basically, I think all the prepaid card providers, they were putting balances on the card, right? So it was sitting with the processor, but as soon as you take it out, right, you create a ledger yourself, and then you just simply authorize based on the signals. Then it is definitely possible.
Got it. So what you do is like you basically, instead of using the balances from the prepaid card providers, you would like just use them as an authorization engine,
Exactly, yeah.
and then have the balances yourself and
in the ledger. Yeah.
in the ledger.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. It's not too dissimilar when we started Brex, because everyone told us that doing a credit card was very hard in the US because, you know, banks and credits. There's like, so what we did is we got a prepaid card and then we just pre-fund it, but have a ledger on credit in the back, and we would just like charge people and then like keep funding it, you know, for the amount of
hacking system effectively.
Yeah, exactly. It was like similar, I guess, with what you guys did. So the value proposition for the customer was, I am traveling around and I don't want to pay FX.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can just like spend in different currencies for free.
Yeah, I also wanted to do transfers as well. So I wanted to have an account with a card, which would also allow me to send money abroad. Because I mean, it's just convenient. And then everyone was telling me, no, it's crazy. It's like, you know, 2 different products. Why would you put 2 different products in kind of, you know, one app? Like every single person told me, VCs told me, like, you know, founders in Fintech told me. But I just kept insisting. So I built the effective account with a button, transfer money abroad, and then with the card as well to spend from the same balance.
Got it. So you're able to put like some balance there so you can like transfer that to the card as well? And that wasn't possible?
Well, card was attached to the wallet, right? Card was simply authorization method. But then from this wallet, from this balance, you could also send money in different currencies to different
well, and that was probably hard to build too, right? Like
that was hard to build too.
And like, where did you get the insight of that people would want that? Like, how did you build that intuition?
Just because I wanted it myself. And for me, it was obvious if I save money that way, plus it's slick to use, why wouldn't other people use it as well?
So you're like, I travel, and when I travel, I hate paying FX fees.
Exactly, yeah.
And, you know, if it's easy, why wouldn't? And were you doing some version of it yourself? Like, would you have multiple cards that you were kind of using or something?
Yeah, before this product, I had multiple cards, multiple accounts. I was, you know, transferring money from one account to another, to the broker as well to exchange money. So,
and like, I guess, have you always like being optimizing costs like that in your life?
No, I mean, to be honest, like I was all about revenues rather than costs. Like costs, I never cared, but for me, it was I just don't like waste. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, it was waste, right? Is okay. One type of money goes into another type of money, and then it's less. For me, it's waste. It's commodity, right?
So it's you felt that like growing up, it's not that you're super focused on your costs. You would like spend money, no problem.
Yeah, I was like completely opposite,
like, waste
right? I didn't really care about costs. For me, it was always okay. I need to make more money, and then costs. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Because okay, you reduce costs by 10%, 20%, revenues can grow 1,000%, 10,000%.
But waste is kind of what bothers you.
Waste is always bothering me. Yeah, I want to be as efficient as possible.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Where do you think that came from? Like, is there anything that?
I don't know. I was always, you know, perfectionist in what I do, right? And for me, to get something done well, I do not want to have waste.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like
interesting. Okay, so then you were doing this first version, and how long did it take you to? Did you code it yourself? Like, how do you get the first people to code it? Do you raise money?
Basically, so I done first research myself. Like, you know, figure out that it's possible, and I got contracts done with all the providers.
And you had a little bit of money at this point yourself, right? Because you had made some bonuses and.
I had quite a lot of money back then. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, okay. Because of trading, right?
Trading.
And basically, so first because I was very new to tech, right, and to development, I hired kind of outsourcer, like a team on outsourcing to build a product.
Yeah, like you like engineers.
Engineers plus design on outsourcing, and
you paid it yourself out of your own pocket at this point.
I just paid them, like, you know, transferred money to them. They were freelancers.
But like it wasn't venture money yet. It was your own money.
No, it was my own money. Yeah, and so basically we kind of, you know, build their. So we built something, but I think back then it wasn't really working, and it was like a very bad quality. So I very quickly realized that outsourcing doesn't work. So I kind of no. Now I learned how to do, like, you know, development, right? I know who to hire. I started hiring people in-house, myself. So I ended up hiring 6 or 7 people, like engineers plus design in-house. And then we continue building the product, and then we will build the product.
And did you know how to code?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You did already?
Yeah, because I learned it, right? Plus in trading, I was also like, doing in Python and MATLAB as well. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. So in trading, you had to code?
No, not really, but I was always, back testing different strategies.
Got it. Now you have some
so
Python,
you need to head into code, yeah.
Got it. So you knew how to interview engineers for someone good or bad at that point?
No, I wasn't good at it. No, to be honest, yeah, no.
Got it. So you just hired people that you thought were smart.
Yeah, I just hired first contractors, and then I brought a team in-house.
And this is all yourself. You're just building, the prepaid card. And you need to get like a provider. Who was your first provider for a prepaid card, like the first bank partnership? Or
it was actually, back then it was called Optimal Payments. They were issuing bank. I think they later became PaySafe.
PaySafe?
Yeah.
Okay. So they were kind of like your BIN sponsor.
Yes, exactly.
Early on. And then you had a processor back then that you used to?
So it was GPS.
GPS,
yeah.
Got it. So, okay. So you brought this team in-house, and they were building with these partners that you got in. And how long did it take you from starting to build to launching?
Or 18 months.
18. Oh, so it's kind of like a long build. Like
yeah, it was. I think beta version, like we were testing already. It was like within 12 months, but on official launch, we officially launched to external people, to a lot of external people, in 18 months.
And did you fund all of it yourself, or you like kind of raise money in between?
Yeah. No, I funded all myself, right? And then when we started having our first customers, I raised money because I was running out of money.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And you applied to YC at some point, I think, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I think you were YC's biggest miss ever. I don't think there's a company that's more successful than Revolut that YC missed. When was this? You remember? Kind of.
It was 2015, probably 2015. Yeah.
And that's when you launched, or that's when you?
I think I applied before we launched officially. Yes.
Before you launch. Yeah. So you're kind of trying to raise money a little bit at this point, or?
No, for me it was. Yeah, I think back then, I wanted to raise money already because I know I was, running out of cash. Yeah. And the advice was first to go to like types of, accelerator or YC, because then they'll promote you to other investors. Because I was starting pitching to investors, and like every single investor declined me. And someone gave me advice, okay, why don't you go to accelerator, and then you have a wider reach of investors, and then they will also prepare you to fundraise.
Interesting. Why do you think, like, looking at your pitch with now back then, like, why do you think you didn't get in?
I don't know. To be honest, back then I already realized that at least accelerators took too much or take too much in equity, right, for what they provide. And back then I wasn't already that motivated to get it done, because I just applied and then see what happens. And then if they would accept, then I would start really looking at this seriously.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. So it was more like an optionality thing. Exactly, why not, kind of thing. Yeah.
It happens, nice, it's another option, but it doesn't.
And how much of your own money did you spend between raising money and?
Well, I wasn't working for 2 years, right? So I probably spent like $700K on business plus on personal expense.
But that was like a big percentage of your money?
Say again?
Was that a big percentage of your money at that point?
Yeah, it was, yeah. Like I think overall my cost for this 2 years was 1 million plus. Yeah,
oh, wow.
Personal plus.
Yeah, so it's probably like the risk. There's a lot of risk, right? To like spend this out of your own money and like do it.
I mean, to be honest, like I always had this attitude that I can always make money, so I wasn't really scared at all.
So you're like, look, worst case scenario, if this doesn't work,
I'll
just
go back
to
have a job, exactly, yeah.
And finance and make millions of dollars again, kind of thing. Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. That's a really good safety net.
Yeah.
Cool. So then you started Revolut, you got these first team, and then when you raised your first money?
2015 as well. It was
after launch, before launch?
It was just before launch. So I think we closed in May, or we agreed the deal in May, and then in June or July I launched.
What were the kind of like early terms back then?
Pretty bad for me. I think they gave me 1 or 1.5 million at 6 million pre.
6 million pre?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you my first deal, and you can see you're going to feel better about yours. My first deal was 300K for 60% of the business.
Oh, that's crazy.
In Brazil.
Yeah.
So, the market's definitely got frothier since then.
Yeah. No, I think it makes sense, right? Because reality is, I think back then, like a lot of companies were undervalued.
Yeah. Well, they're one of the big outcomes, right? To kind of justify the.
Yeah.
And did you think it was a great valuation back then, or no? You thought it was
okay. I was running out of money, so I took whatever I can.
It's like whatever. But did you think, wow, I got a great deal, or no? You were like, I got a shitty deal, but it is what it is.
No, I wanted to take money as soon as possible, and then just focus on.
So you won. You're like, hey, I won. I got money, which is what.
And then because I was already fundraising, it was I spent already like 5 or 6 months fundraising. Everyone said no.
So
for me it was.
So it was a hard fundraising.
It was super hard.
Interesting.
It was London, right? Plus, in London there is no kind of back then there wasn't that many VCs, so it was very, very hard.
What was the biggest pushback that people had back then?
I mean, they were all saying no, like unit economics doesn't work. How you make money?
It's monetization.
Yeah, they were so kind of spreadsheet focused rather than product focused. And for me, it was always, I'll figure out economics later. I just need volume first.
And was that very obvious that you were going to be able to monetize to you?
For me, it was obvious because, again, this mentality that I can effectively compete, right, with other organizations, with other people. Because, I was in Canary Wharf, which is London's financial center. You look around, all these, huge buildings, huge banks making a lot of money, right? And then, they make money. How come I wouldn't be able to make money?
So you were like, hey, if I compete with these guys, I'll win.
Yeah, of course.
So therefore, I just need some volume so I get to compete with these guys.
Exactly, yeah.
Very interesting.
And no one believed me. They say, no, like unit economics doesn't work.
So the first product was this, you launch, and was it like instant product market fit, or it took a little bit to kind of get it right?
It took some time. So it took I remember we had one sign up a day, then went to 5 sign ups a day, 10 sign ups. Suddenly went to 100 sign ups a day. So
And retention was always good from the beginning, or no?
To be honest, like first 3-4 years, I didn't even measure retention, right? All those things. I was so focused on product. Yeah.
On product.
Yeah. Infrastructure, product infrastructure. Yeah.
Interesting. And then how long was it just like one product? Or like 2, I guess, the wallet and the card?
Not long, to be honest here. So we launched, we saw traction, and then I started looking into other products like credit, trading.
And then at this point, when did fundraising kind of become easy?
I think second round was easier. Yes.
Easier.
Third round was even easier. Fourth round, fifth round, it was like really bumped because there was in a bad economic environment. So it was very hard to raise money. So it was hard. Sometimes like generally every consequent round was easier, but then sometimes we had bumps. Yeah.
Makes sense. And then at this point, do you think that the vision that you had back then kind of sticked, or like what changed in the vision?
Not obviously changed, right? Because like reality is you never have clearly defined vision or clearly defined idea, right?
Totally.
Like really need to start working on it to get more information, to build something, iterate. It's like finding a gold, right? Okay, you try here, you try there. Okay, this thing sticks. You go deeper.
And what do you think if you had asked, Nick back then, like, what's the vision for Revolut? What is a 2015 version of it would have looked like?
I mean, it was just a wallet and a card. I wasn't even thinking about vision. To be honest, back then I was always skeptical about people who kind of have great vision for 10 years forward. They have strategy.
Yeah.
Like I was never like that. To be honest, for me, okay, that's an obvious problem.
Yeah.
Let's get it done. Move on. Right. So that was my approach.
And after you started, like, were there companies that you admired more than others? They were like, oh yeah, I kind of want to model these companies. And did you keep looking to China as kind of like model of companies as well?
Yeah, I looked at WeChat. I think back then I looked at because I started looking at tech. Obviously, I looked at big tech successes like Stripe or Airbnb as well.
But like company culture or operating model, were those the companies you kind of looked at, like Stripe and Airbnb? Because you guys seem to have a very different culture than they do.
No, I looked at it, but I was never going deep to understand how they operate. Yeah. I was just too busy, to be honest.
Yeah. How did you think intentionally about kind of company culture, or was it something that you just did and it kind of just happened early on?
I think company culture is just a product of a founder, right? It effectively replicates who you are. And because I was always extremely competitive, extremely aggressive on what I do, extremely wanted to win. Plus, I was perfectionist as well. So as a result, when I was hiring people who are very different to me, I mean, we didn't really work together well. So I ended up building interview process how to hire these types of people who I know they will deliver. So you started hiring these people. That's how culture is born, right? Because then these people start hiring the same people.
And do you think that like you ended up hiring people that are similar to you? At some point, you probably tried the idea of hiring people that are different than you. Do you think that was a good idea, or no? You just kind of came back to like hiring people that are more similar?
All people are different, right? All people are different nationalities, different background, but like values are the same, right? So for me, very important was hardworking. Very important was kind of delivering things very fast. Very important was perfectionist or quality of the product. So for me, as soon as I saw people that are not fitting into these values, right, obviously couldn't work together well for long.
So one of the things that I find very interesting on this people topic is that you have a lot of direct reports, right?
Yeah.
How many do you have now?
Like 40, around 40. Yeah.
40?
Yeah.
40. I thought it was like 30, and it was like already a lot. But yeah.
I have like 32 direct, and then now like 10, 15 indirect or functional, we call them.
So, obviously, as you know, there's not a lot of CEOs that do that. Why do you think that's kind of what you do? Jensen is a very successful one that does, right? Like apparently, I think he has 60 reports or something like that.
Well, reality is my philosophy is very simple, right? So as soon as you start spending time managing people, they're probably a failure, right? Because then you need to dive deep, you need to tell them what to do. My approach was always people need to be independent, they need to be self-guided, right? So they need to kind of self-identify what needs to be done. They need to self-deliver it without my help. And then we have one-on-one or business reviews just to think on direction what needs to be done across the whole company. But as soon as you kind of go deep, as soon as you start telling people that they're doing things wrong, and you do it consistently on a weekly basis, so they're just wrong people.
I remember when we talked, you talked a lot about like building the systems, right? What does that mean to you exactly?
Well, basically, because I was always quantitative by nature, by my education and by trading job, I was always trying to quantify things and not rely on emotions, but rely on effectively machines, right, to deliver outcomes that I want. And then machines are obviously process, and then people within process. So I think quite early on I figured out. So usually I kind of was managing myself directly, like 20, 30, 40 people, and company grew up, say above 50 people, and then I had to put management structure in place. And then like very early on I realized that all these managers are not like me, right? And don't go down into details. They just simply have all this classical management thing, one-on-one, how are you, making sure people feel great. For me, I never bought it, right? Like for me, people don't need, how are you, right? Or like great people don't need how are you. They just need to have fun at the job. And having fun at the job is when you build great products, when you see results. So I was always against classical management styles. And I also remember arguing with my VCs. They always wanted me to hire senior executives. They gave me example how all these guys are great, and I just never kind of trusted their opinions. For me, people who are kind of senior executives who are like in the market for sale, right? They're probably like a negative selection bias. Totally. So I was never like into older people, senior executives.
It's interesting that I think the last couple of years, maybe 2019, 2020, 2021, I would hear about Revolut, and that would be I think the main criticism. It would be something along the lines of, Nick doesn't hire enough like great senior people, or something along those lines. And I felt really good. It's like, yeah, we hire great senior people, And then like now 2025 come along, I'm like, fuck, Nick was right from the beginning, like, very few of them actually work, and you probably you overpay them. And,
yeah, exactly.
A lot of our leadership team today is just people who grew up at the company. They're just like really, really talented.
I mean, like a lot of people, they're just career harvesters. I mean, that's reality, right? They have, great CV, then they sell their CV, but they cannot really deliver.
Yeah, what did you call them?
Career harvesters.
Career harvesters. Okay, that's interesting. Career
like
harvesters.
rentier seekers. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that name. But like, what do you actually like? When you say building systems, right? Like, once you gave me an example, I remember you guys had this. I remember which year was like some compliance scare that was like all over the press. When was that?
It was like probably like some compliance system.
Yeah, 2020, 2021, something along. I remember there was like it was all over the press and.
Yeah, basically we were because I was never relying on senior people how they did things, because I saw in the past, because I was very kind of system driven, tech driven, systemizing everything.
Yeah.
And then obviously when I looked at compliance, like all these people from big banks, I don't know, they don't really have technical education, they don't know math, physics, and they approach solving problems in a very traditional way, right? And for me, it was always about building models or building rules or models to kind of solve compliance problems or systems. Because early on, like I realized that machines are so much better at standardized problems compared to humans. And I was always, building effectively systems to replace manual work. And the same with managers. I very early on realized that, okay, this management structure doesn't work for me. So I very early on started developing a system in-house to manage people, like assigning KPIs to each team on department level, on a company level, making sure everything is super transparent in terms of KPIs, dashboards, analytics per team in the system, and then building up the whole recruitment process, defining people as skill set, then value set, and then deliverable set, and then actually testing each of their parameters within the interview process. So yeah, very early on.
So like this is like, I talk to a lot of CEOs, a lot of companies. This is like one of the most unique things I think about you and Revolut is like how much emphasis and time and energy you spend on like building the system. So I want to make sure I really understand it.
Yeah.
So like let's get an example, right? In this sense, obviously every company has like KPIs, but I think the hard part is, what is that? You have a meeting and they're off the KPI, for example. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, the reality, when you're doing one-on-one, so you do business reviews, you do it 2, 3, or 4 times, right? You always start with KPIs, where they are, their roadmap, and then you dive deep. Okay, what are you building? Why are you building it? What's wrong? Like within 2, 3 iterations, you realize who is good, who is going, deep enough, and who is not. So you've got also intuition about person or a team. And then this intuition is a lead indicator, is ahead of KPIs. Even if KPIs are not there, but you agree that what the team is doing, you agree that they're delivering fast, you agree that quality is good, you know that KPIs will catch up. So you have this intuition.
Got it. So you're saying is like, look, you need to build when you do these business reviews with your like 40 direct reports, what you're looking for is trying to see, okay, are they doing the right thing in order to drive this KPI?
Yeah, is the logic right? Is the direction right? Are they going deep enough into details themselves, right? It's super important because a lot of managers, I would say, 95% plus managers across all the areas, they don't go into details. And that's wrong. For me, manager is a person who goes down into details and is able to direct the team and then identify if something goes wrong. Because in reality, how do you achieve goals, right? So you define goals and then you define a roadmap, what needs to be done, or direction. And then you execute, right? So team can be very good on execution, but direction can be wrong. So they all kind of work half a year, but direction was wrong. They all wasted all this effort, right?
Yeah.
And then great manager or any manager, in my view, they need to go down into details, understand the quality of execution. And then only details will help you understand direction as well. In a lot of cases, you think, okay, this product would work. That's how you do it. But then you go down into details, you realize yourself, no, that's not how you need to build it. So then you change roadmap.
But do you think your job when you're doing that is to kind of like also know the details or make sure they know the details? Like, how do you know? Because the company is so big today, like you can't possibly...
No, I go down into details myself. Like as soon as I see kind of, red flags, I just go down into details. Like on design level, code level, like structure level. And then that's the best way to identify kind of weak performance, right? You go down into details, lower compared to them. You see the difference, and then they're not good, right? I mean, how come you're doing it like 100% of your time?
Yeah.
I just spend a weekend diving deep into details, and then yeah, exactly, like it's unacceptable.
Interesting. And then whenever someone leaves from that role, like that makes it very easy to like put someone back there, right? Because you kind of have the systems.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, because you kind of into details, you also know each team member as well, and it's pretty easy to kind of promote someone.
So if someone leaves, you always have someone there, kind of like in the back burner.
Because you are into details. Yeah.
Because you're into the details of everything.
Yeah.
Interesting. But like, are you not at the level now that like it's just so big that you can't get into the details of kind of everything, or no?
Everything, no. But again, I have all these KPIs, metrics, and then if things go wrong, you see it on KPIs, and if KPIs are not moving in the right direction for a long time, I just go down into details. So I'm very selective where I go down into details.
And then, obviously, I kind of feel that in product, the way to do that is a little bit more obvious, but you feel you do it all in the entire company, right? Like marketing and compliance and, and every function.
Yeah, when things are going well, right, you obviously don't dive deep, right? You kind of know that, okay, this person who manages self-guided, they're into details themselves. As soon as things go wrong, right, you see it on metrics and then you dive deep.
Yeah.
That's how you end up, having many reports, because like if you have philosophy that you only work with self-guided people, like with time you filter out a lot of bad people and good people stay, and then you can actually have many direct reports in the system because they're all self-guided. They deliver all the time.
And how do you know who to have a report to you versus who to like not report to you?
I mean, if things go well, right, I usually kind of let them go on their own. Plus, I might put someone to manage them. But then in critical areas where I kind of don't trust my intuition, I always manage.
Like what's an example?
Compliance, FinCrime.
Got it. So that part you manage yourself always because
I always into details because it's a complex area.
It's a complex area
in our business.
Yeah, interesting. And how do you think about experience, right? Like hiring people with some experience in that area versus not just having smart, hungry people?
Reality, ideally, you need to have both, right? But that's very, very rare. So I usually prefer smartness and hunger to experience. Because reality, if you hire a smart person who solved difficult problems in the past, and you give them easier problem to solve that they didn't know about, or they will figure it out, right? But as soon as you hire a smart person and you give them super complex problem they haven't resolved, so above their IQ level, then they will fail. And then in a lot of cases in finance and banking, because they always rely on manual process and not tech, people with a tech background smart, they can solve the problems through tech much better compared to traditional people.
Yeah, the only thing is they need to know the edge cases, right, from that problem. Like they need to know, like, what are they even solving for?
Yeah, exactly. But then here is a trade-off, right? Obviously, if you have experience, edge cases. If you don't have experience, okay, you build system, and then system is not complete because there are edge cases.
You keep improving.
You keep improving, and they make mistakes, obviously, but then time they fix it.
Yeah, interesting. The other thing I found very interesting about how you run the company is, you're the first person that actually knew how much an engineering team cost. Like, X people cost this much, and kind of think about the ROI. I literally never heard a tech CEO talk about it like that. Which
because I built it in my system as well. So we built this software, right, called Revolut People, which we sell now externally to other companies, which shows you a KPI on a company level, department level, team level, individual roadmaps, like all these trust metrics that we have, NPS, customer support tickets, bugs, audits, findings, and one of the tabs there is financial costs, right? So every time when I kind of dive deep into team, I see the KPIs, roadmap, I see total cost per year, right?
Well, that's another interesting thing. It feels that like a lot of times the software that you have creates the system and not the system kind of like builds the software.
I think you start building, you have idea about system in your mind, right? You first create spreadsheet, then you put it in the software, and then you look at it, right? And then because certain user features don't satisfy you, you kind of add, and with time it becomes very good.
But like I kind of keep thinking about kind of like HR software, and I feel that like, for example, it's kind of hard to pull from traditional HR software and like everyone's salaries and like, allocate that across teams. Like if you use Workday or something, it's like not the easiest thing in the world to kind of do that.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I built my own system.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel that then a lot of companies just say, okay, like, given this is the software, I'll adapt my system instead of being like, well, this is my system. What software can kind of support it.
Yeah, I mean that's also the reason why kind of we generally don't do acquisitions, because again, I know how much one team of 10 people can deliver, how much it costs per year, right? I know how long it takes to create a bet which is similar to the product you want to buy. And then buying is always so much higher compared to building, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of ended up passing a lot of deals.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. And is launching a country similar to like how much it costs to launch a country and like all that?
Yeah, exactly. So before I wasn't running expansion, and we kind of did it all wrong. I think just back then we were not ready, to be honest, system wise, people wise. Started doing myself and systemize it, and we approach each country as a new bet. So there is a clear playbook what needs to be done. So we first hire a very small team, including CEO. They are tasked to get banking licenses. After they get the license, there is a kind of launch stage when there is a clearly defined roadmap for every single central team to deliver this country. Then after product is launched, we go into onboarding optimization, retention optimization, unit economics optimization. After these metrics are hit, then we switch on marketing engine and then acquiring more customers in this country.
And in this case, like you're describing now a little bit where you're kind of coming up with that, for expansion. That's like your job.
Yeah.
You're coming up like, hey, this is our playbook for expanding to a new country.
Yeah. Before it wasn't done in a very structured way. That's why we kind of failed.
And you feel that's true for like a lot of things in a company? You're the one creating what the system is? Or
yeah, actually, ultimately, you end up solving the hardest problems, right? Because in reality, okay, you've got your good people, but then something blows up, right? Yeah. That means that like raw horsepower of this person was not enough to solve this problem, right? And then you put someone else, but it still blows up, right? Then you jump on it yourself and then solve it. So you end up, kind of be the last line of defense.
That's another interesting insight about executives. That I think like these expensive executives, they also don't like if you do that. They kind of like block you.
Yeah, exactly. That was like, wow, really?
Yeah, like they really do kind of like block you because they're like, well, that's my job. If you're doing that, what am I supposed to do? Kind of thing, right? And yeah, exactly. You're too close to their shit and they don't like it.
Yeah, because then you will figure out that they're not good at what they do. Honestly.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely seems like a big superpower from you guys. It's like you're just so close to the details on like everything.
Yeah, exactly. I think you need to have a very high level and then very low level. It is super important. Otherwise, you cannot identify people bullshitting you.
So what's the version of very high level?
Well, high level, you kind of oversee all the portfolio of products that you have and portfolio of countries, just high level metrics. Okay, things are going well, not well. And then if things are not going well on numbers, you just go down deep into details and then you figure out problems. Okay, is it onboarding problem? Is it like financial problem, unit economics, or is it like product problem? Then just going on the level 0 and then understanding what went wrong. Like usually 95% is just wrong people doing the job.
Yeah.
Not detailed enough, not good enough.
What about competitors? Do you think about it?
No, not really. I mean, to be honest, I obviously watch them, but early on, since I was a kid, my kind of attitude was always not worry about competitors, but like every day, what you do, you just need to be at 100%, right? And then even if you lose, you know what, you've done everything, right? I mean, it's a bad luck or you are not as good. But as soon as you are not kind of 100%, then if competition wins, you don't know, they won because they're better or because I didn't put additional energy, right? So every day I want to be at 100% so I don't have regret in the future, right? That's my approach. Like every day 100%.
Is there any battles on Revolut that you felt that you lost? Or,
Yeah, of course, many. I mean, like obviously with experience, you realize that many things I started went wrong and I should have avoided it.
Tell me an example of one you remember.
In reality, we applied for banking license too late, right? Because when you're a large organization, it's much more difficult to receive a banking license.
To what, sorry?
It's much more difficult to receive a banking license when you have millions of customers rather than a new bank without any customers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of course. Because I mean, in the views of regulators, you're much less risky if you don't have customers. So then going to certain... I remember when we were doing expansion, the Brexit happened. We need to have like a base for Europe, went to Ireland. And then we didn't check statistics of licenses they gave. And then if you check statistics, for the last 10 years, they gave 0 licenses. Right? Well, it was pretty stupid to expect to get the license in Ireland quickly.
But who decided you're going to go to Ireland or why?
some lawyers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like I was young and stupid, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, now we always look at statistics of success, right? Of number of licenses applied, granted, rejected before going into the country.
Yeah. So it was just like someone else that kind of, looked at it and made a decision. And
because I was always like a very product focused. I really love, design. I really love, visuals. I really love, perfection in the product. And back then, when I was younger and less experienced, I was always putting uninteresting subjects to someone else, like legal or compliance, HR as well. But then I quickly hit the wall with these areas. So I kind of starting, kind of managing myself. I learned it all. But I just hate doing it. But I mean, no one could, so I had to do it. Yeah.
It's interesting as you describe Revolut in a very positive way. It reminds me a lot of the kind of like Chinese companies, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because like building a lot of software yourself. Operating like very aggressively. Working really hard, having systems for everything. At least when I visit China. I don't know. Have you ever visited a Chinese company?
I've never been to China.
No, it's an interesting trip. It's like it reminds me a lot of stuff you're saying as things that I've kind of like seen there in a very positive way. Like I think you've obviously done an unbelievable job.
I think it's very important to look systemically at things, right?
Yeah. More than like the U.S. companies, I feel you feel a lot more efficient and disciplined than most U.S. companies.
Yeah, US is a large market, right? And like almost unlimited capital as well that you can raise. So if you show traction, product market fit, okay, they throw at you infinite amount of money, right? And then you can afford not to be efficient. Obviously, as a company scales, it becomes and grow up, and then they ask for profits. Then a lot of companies start cutting costs, renegotiating vendors. We didn't have this luxury at all, just because fundraising is much more difficult in Europe.
Is there what is the moment of Revolut that you remember that like was the hardest for you?
Like a lot of negative media in the beginning, right? Was pretty hard because it was really unfair and dependencies when you start, when you're not a bank. You rely on issuing bank and process and so on, and they're so bad at what they do.
For me, like I'm curious your thoughts on this, but like one of the really weird moments was like the Silicon Valley Bank blow up.
Yes.
It made me think about fintech and financial services that like that was a 60-year-old plus institution that just like evaporated, Yeah. Do you ever feel like scared about?
Yeah, also because I came through, Lehman Brothers experience. For me,
yeah, that was your version of it.
Yeah, for me, I had this kind of scary of speculation, right? Because I mean, reason banks die, just not because they have bad product or competition drives them out of the market. Banks blow up, right? And for me, because of this, I'm always afraid of kind of gambling, speculation. I just don't do it, like full stop, right? I want guaranteed revenue, not like you buy something and goes up, you sell it.
Goes up, goes down, right? Like
yeah, I just don't allow in our organization any kind of gambling type of businesses, right? Then what we see at a lot of banks, there is a treasury department, and what they do, effectively they invest. They call it invest customer money into financial instruments.
Yeah.
That's in my opinion how you blow up, right?
Yeah.
There is misprice, something happens, curve goes dead, it's not hedged. So I just don't allow any kind of part of the business to speculate. For me, we want to be pure kind of, commission-based business that just grows as a machine, right? It doesn't have, downturns, upturns. No, it's like always makes money.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's interesting because like, SVB was like treasury securities, right? That kind of blew them up. It wasn't even that they were buying like, options on.
No, it's DV1 risk, right? I mean, if they effectively borrow from customers and then the long-term bonds.
Yeah, it's duration.
Yeah, duration. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for me it was like very eye-opening. Maybe for you it's similar to the Lehman Brothers that such an institution can just like blow up. It's crazy to think about it. And what do you think? Like, looking forward, right? Like you've been building Revolut for 10 years now.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to be different in the next 10 years?
I think every 1 or 2 years are so different, right? I think it's super important to always be in business, right? Because you see all these things happening, like Before it was crypto,
That was AI.
AI, and now it's LLM, which is a really big thing. And you always need to kind of dive deep and understand what you can apply to your business. I think it's very valuable.
What is that version for you guys in Revolut? What is LLMs going to do for you?
Just we again build almost everything in house, and just ensuring we have infrastructure platform to rolling out LLMs for all the use cases that we have. And same thing for models as well, like machine learning models.
So just like finding the, is it mostly cost cutting, you think, that's going to be applied? Or is there anything customer facing?
In our customer facing as well, but we're very focused on kind of improving all these corner cases processes that are served by people. So for us, it's very important to have them automated.
And you started a fund a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why did you do
that? To be honest, I was very angry with certain investors I had.
Why?
And I don't remember the reason. Don't remember exactly the reason, but I thought, you know what, like why are you so dependent on you, right? And why don't I compete with you? Right? That's how it started. Yeah.
Interesting. What do you feel towards investors today of Revolut?
Look, I mean, they have business to make money on founders, right? And yeah, sometimes obviously as a founder, right? I sometimes feel there's a lot of free ride.
Yeah.
On what I do. But I mean, it is how the world works.
But do you think as you became an investor, you have more empathy towards them?
To VCs?
Yeah. Or less? You're kind of like, oh no, yeah, actually.
No, just because I'm doing it in a very different way, right? And for me, it's more like a statistical investment rather than what they do. Looking in the eyes of founder, okay, is it a good founder or not? Is it a good business model or not? So for me, it's rather model driven than human.
But there's a lot of like the, after making the investment decision, how you deal with the company, right? Yeah,
for me, to be honest, I think great founders, they just don't need
you
help, right? It's if someone needs a lot of help, I mean, it's like the same in business, right? It's the same with my direct reports. If
you want self-directed people,
yeah, if they need my help a lot, I mean, they're the wrong people, right? And for me, it's just easy to write it off.
So do you think that founders should maximize valuation in every round as much as possible, given, nothing else matters?
Pros and cons, right? So if maximizing valuation distracts you from building business, and then if you're running out of money, then probably not. I think by and large, I would say you need to maximize valuation, you need to maximize brand recognition by bringing top tier VCs.
So why is that important, you think?
I think it is important. It's a good early signal, so it allows actually to raise more money in the future. So I think it is important. So brand, I think, matters. Other than that, is like function of optimization valuation.
Makes sense. So given it's a top tier VC, optimize valuation kind of thing.
Yeah, just make sure they compete with each other. Yeah.
And has any VC ever fucked you?
Yeah, quite a few times.
Really? How come?
Many times, right? I remember once I had their fundraising done, we signed a term sheet, and then next day S&P dropped like 10%. It was like December, close to Christmas, and then the guy just withdrew term sheet.
Oh, I actually remember this one.
Gave me like much lower valuation.
Yeah. Did that motivate you, or was it just annoying? You're like, oh fuck, I wanna.
No, obviously, like for me, negative emotions also kind of you can use them as additional energy.
Yeah.
Right, to
like
get
grind.
things done.
Yeah. Interesting.
Like some people, they have this negative emotion, they slow them down. For me, anger actually speeds me up.
Yeah,
like I'm more like a war type person rather than
wartime.
Yeah.
It's like you get angry, you just work harder, and
exactly. Yeah, just additional stimulus.
Obviously, you're hyper successful, right? So you think like kids that have wealthy parents that don't have the necessity, it's just harder.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think every generation they're worse and worse.
Yeah.
That's why you look at wealthy societies. It just goes down, right? I mean, when one society was poor, there were some great people who built everything.
Yeah.
Made businesses, made money, and then every single generation who don't have necessity, right?
It gets worse.
It gets worse until they blow up. Society becomes poor, and then it starts again. That's why we see like cycles everywhere.
And they start, when societies have too many, they don't have enough problems, they start caring about like micro problems, that are not that big problems.
Yeah, exactly. In reality, what happens in the majority of societies, because it's democracy, right? So you have, each new generation is a bit is a bit more entitled.
Yeah.
Right. So they vote for politicians who give it to them, and politicians are motivated, right, by promising things, wrong things to people. So as a result, we see politicians giving more and more and more. Each generation becomes worse, and then things collapse. And then it starts over again.
It seems that Europe would fall into this trap. But,
seems so, yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, you managed to build like a massive business in Europe, right? Like, why do you think? You think it's just like lack of good people like you that Europe hasn't have great outcomes, in comparison to other places, or no, there's something more systematic about it?
Well, first of all, Europe is a combination of many countries, many languages, right? Different regulatory regimes. That's number one. So it's very fragmented. It's not like US. You launch business and then you sell everything it to like 400 million people. Yeah. In Europe, you still need to go country by country. That's number one. Number two, because I think Europe is further away in this cycle because first like Europe became rich, US became rich, now Europe becoming poor.
Yeah.
And so it's in the cycle when people are probably more entitled compared to US. So they receive probably more better job securities because of regulations. So they're kind of lower in the cycle compared to US. And as a result, it's just harder to build a large company, right?
Yeah. But you seem to be able to figure that out, right? Like,
yeah, good interview process, because ultimately, when there are 400 million people, you can always find very good ones. Like if we're talking about averages, right? If you hire based on averages, then yes, probably you're disadvantaged compared to US. But if you target like top 1%, I think top 1% of people everywhere, they're super good.
But still, like I was saying, like top 1% is amazing in Europe, but 1%, but like there's just not a lot of big outcomes in Europe in comparison to US and China, for example, right? Even with the top 1%. And I think what you're saying about the different countries seems to me to be a huge factor, that like it's just so hard to do everything.
I think it's a cultural thing as well, right? Because a society is like a bit further away in the curve. People are more kind of protected, entitled, and the value the work-life balance much more compared to US or China. As a result, you just don't have people working hard enough to achieve success.
Oh, that's another thing. You have a lot of people in Russia, right?
No, we used to have like 200 people in Russia, but then we transferred them to UK, I think Lisbon as well.
After the war.
Yeah.
But like, do you feel that like you can hire great people in Europe, or you hire just people elsewhere and they kind of build products for Europe?
No, we hire people everywhere, right, within certain time zones.
Yeah.
Like we have so many kind of different people.
Makes sense. So like you kind of like, I'm just going to find the best hardworking people in every country.
Yeah, it depends on the specialty, right? So for each specialty, we have a playbook where we define which companies we're hiring from, which countries we're hiring from. Because on the experience, we know that, these particular companies for this particular specialty, people are good.
What's your remote kind of situation today?
Like, we can work remotely, can work in the office. So we don't care as soon as you kind of,
deliver
your KPIs,
Yeah. Was that the same pre-COVID? No.
No. Like COVID completely changed how we work.
Yeah. And what do you think you're bad at?
I'm bad at probably social interactions.
Social interactions? Interesting.
Like,
how does that manifest?
To be honest, I got bored very quickly, right? When chat is not deep enough.
Yeah.
And for me, I just, hate to waste time.
Yeah.
And so when interaction is not meaningful, I just, get bored very, very quickly. Because I'm so direct, I don't even bother to pretend.
And when does that hurt you? Like, when is that negative for you?
It's always negative, right? Because, sometimes people think that you're too cold or just, not interested in them.
Yeah.
And for me, I just...
a lot of times it's true.
Yeah.
But when you are interested...
For me, it's just, so busy that... I really kind of, try to save every minute, right?
Yeah. You're just so efficient with your time and dedicated. Cool. Well, it's a good note to end on the podcast. But I really appreciate you doing this. I thought it was, I got to know, we know each other for a while, but I feel I got to know you a lot better after this. So I appreciate you doing the time, and I feel everyone will know you a lot better as well.
Cool. Awesome.
So,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to our friends at Atomic Growth for helping with production and distribution.